Hello and welcome to Jahaida and Luzzi. I'm so looking forward to this talk. This interview is going to be about awakening and motherhood. It's one of those things that we don't talk that much about. And I think it's a very, very important topic. We talk about how it is for me and the seeing through self, but we don't really talk about what about the family constellation. And if we talk about the family constellation, we talk about the fourth and the fifth, the craving, I want this and that, or I don't want this and that. And then we talk about, so it's very much seeing from that angle, but it's not like, okay, 5:30 in the morning, you got a sick child, what are you going to do? So it's that combination of awakening and motherhood that I find really important to talk about. And then also like what we talked a little bit about before we started to record was that difference that there is in awakening for women that has a family and for men that has a family. That difference that is in that, because everybody always turns to the wife or to the woman. If there's anything going on in the family, then it's always on her. So there's something very important to talk about when we talk about awakening and motherhood. And Jahaida, I'm so happy you want to do this. I hope we're going to make many, many, many more interviews about this topic, because it's really, to me, it's very, very important. I've heard you talk in Vince's group back when before you saw through self, and there was all the battling and the but all of that. I remember when the recording where Todd, where he says thing, I would like for you to talk about that, where he says thing and just falls into place. And then after that, the many recordings that was after that, you just had this calm about you, that regarding everything with your children and everything. But I think the best way to start is if you start talking about how your life was before awakening, and then we move into I would like to talk about non-schooling, because you have chosen to non-school your children, and having made that decision before awakening. I would like to hear about that, how it is to be you in that family constellation with that decision after awakening. I would like to hear about that. And then if there's anything else that you want to add and we can talk about, then I'm all for that. But could you start to talk about you before awakening? How was it to be you?
I don't know. I guess when I was reading the question, you sent me some of the questions that you might ask. So I was thinking about like where to start.
Yeah.
But I guess I guess when I first got into like spiritual things was like when I started having anxiety, and I was noticing that I was having anxiety attacks, kind of like I don't even remember what it was like then, but yeah, I think it was just like you feel really scared. All of a sudden, you feel really scared and you don't even know why. And so I started doing yoga, and because that's what I looked up, like how to deal with anxiety, right? So it's like try yoga, and then, meditation. I started doing meditation. Um, and actually, I met my husband at yoga, and he introduced me to Vipassana, 10-day meditation retreat. He said it's 10 days, it's completely free. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm down for that. Because I think I used to compare myself a lot. Like I used to just think that I wasn't enough. I used to think that I needed to be better. And like, I just wasn't worthy because I didn't have value to offer the world. So I thought that I was less than because I couldn't offer something very valuable. Like I remember comparing myself to these yoga teachers. We would go to their classes, and we like went out to eat with them. They had like a big following. And I remember saying like, I wish I was as good as them. I wish that Like I just felt like I was just on, I had nothing of value to offer. And so then when we went to Vipassana, it was the 10 days of silence. So it's basically, everybody knows probably what Vipassana is. It's just 10 days of silence and basically 12 hours a day of meditation. And then discourses at night where you hear the teacher speak about what the practice is and what the kind of like the theory of, I guess, Buddhism is. And yeah, when after that 10 days was over, I was like, oh my God, I felt so high on life. I just felt so happy. And I remember like we had a party to go to when we came back at my husband's family's house, and I hadn't really known them. So it was a lot of new people, meeting new people. And when you feel less than, it's hard to meet new people because it's like, oh, who are you? Here's who I am. And kind of like, what do you do? Kind of like, what do you have to offer? Kind of. So we went after the 10-day retreat. It was the same day that we got back, and we went to this party. And I remember looking at my husband back then. He was just my boyfriend, and I said, do I look different? Because I feel so different. Like, I just feel, I feel so different. Do I look different? Like, I remember literally like asking him, like, this is so different. Like, can you tell? Because holy like, I just wanted to like, I fell in love with like we stopped to get like a gift first before the party. And we stopped at a supermarket, and the woman that was at the cash register, I felt like she was my family. Like I was like in love with her. Like I wanted to like, I just loved her so much. And like, so then of course when I'm at the party, it's like I was just looking around at everybody, and I just wanted to I just loved everybody. Just wanted to talk to them. Wasn't afraid. Back then I didn't even know what that was back then, right? Like it wasn't, I didn't know that there was no self there. That was what was actually happening. Because everything that Goenka teaches, it's always still you're the self doing the practice. You're the self noticing the sensations. You're the self putting awareness on the tingling and all the things that he says, the aversion and it's like it's still always you. So like I hadn't realized then that was what that was. But so of course that kind of that was so beautiful, and then it faded, and I wanted it back so bad that like I would have done anything. Like I went back to like, how you can serve because it's free. So you can give a donation or you can serve other 10-day retreats. I went and served like several other retreats because I didn't have like a regular full-time job then. And because I just thought that if I could just get it back by sitting in another retreat and doing it again, then I could get it back, because I lost it and I was back into like that. I was back in to being so like worried about what people thought of me, and like I would like, I would drink so much because the drinking would make me feel like I was okay. The drinking would just lessen like the feeling of like there's something wrong. And it was just not good. Like I used to drink so much. And so then I couldn't get it back. And so then I guess my husband proposed, and he said to me, like, you need to stop drinking or we're not getting married. Like, it was like, he's like, yeah, I'm not marrying you unless you stop drinking. That's like a problem. So I quit drinking because I actually like, I had to think about it. Like, oh my God, do I really have to quit drinking? Like, and he's like, no, like, I mean, like all together, like never drink ever. Like not even on social occasions. Like cause he wasn't ever like, he wasn't as attached to it as I was. He didn't need it like I needed it, especially in social situations. So then I basically stopped drinking, and then that had me face some of like what I was running away from, like that discomfort that I thought I needed to drink to get away from that discomfort. And still I was like, reading Eckhart Tolle and like Eckhart Tolle was like the first time that I realized that I wasn't my thoughts. That was before Vipassana, but still, I was doing some of his programs like online, and that was, I think, when like the new non-duality stuff started to come into my feed, was because I was looking at his videos and like doing his program online. Should I talk about the kids too now, or should I?
If you want.
Yeah, okay.
It's completely up
Okay.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so during all this time too, I was in school to become a teacher, but I was still like, I always had like night jobs, like I worked in bars and as a bartender, as a dancer, as a poker waitress. Later on, after I was with well, I had quit the whole bartending dancing thing right before I met my husband, but then I was just working at night, like in a poker spot, which is basically in New York City. They have these illegal kind of poker games where rich guys come to play, and like I made good money just bringing them, serving them food, giving them a massage, like while they were playing at the table, and like so I always made good money at night. Like I never really had to like hold down like a steady day job, and it was always great money, way more money than like what my people my age were making. So but I was going to school, I was training to become a teacher, and the reason I chose that too is because I just felt like I loved being around children, and I thought, oh, okay, I guess I love being around children. They're joyful and sweet, and so I guess I'll just study this. I didn't really know what else to do, so that's what I did. And then um, I got my degree, I graduated, and in a I started working in like a charter school, which basically is like a public school, but it's privately funded, so they can kind of do things their way. There's certain mandates that they have to run the school a certain way, but they have more freedom to do things that the way they want to do with the curriculum and such. So I started working in a school, and it just became really hard because of the way the children were treated, and they just were expected to be a certain way all the time, and just were punished if they weren't that way. And like the teachers were just nasty, just so unkind and just brutal. And I was supposed to be that way too, because how could I be the gentle, peaceful, like understanding child and get them to do what they were supposed to do in order to, you know, they have to meet the standard in school, right? They have to study for the test, take the test. And I was like in kindergarten. It was in a kindergarten classroom, and there was a point where they had them taking like a standardized test, which is crazy. And they wouldn't let them use the bathroom. They weren't allowed to get up and use the bathroom because there was the testing going on, and they weren't allowed to use the bathroom. And it's kindergarten, okay? It's like 5-year-old. I'm like, okay, this is like, I don't know, like more and more every day that I worked there, I was like, I don't know, I can't do this. I don't know if I could do this. Like, I'm supposed to do what they do. Like, that's what being a teacher is. They're like, and also it was like, not every school is like this. I don't want it to, of course not, but the school that I was in, the culture that was there was like, yeah, this is how you have to be. And you have to basically punish them and shame them until they comply. And if they don't, they'll be punished and shamed even more. And that's the way you do it. So so basically, long story short, I was like, I can't do this. I quit. And I was still working my job at night. So I still had, I still had an income coming in. So I was able to just walk away from that because I had an income coming in. And so I was on the search for a school that was more, that was more loving and, open to a different way of learning. So I basically just went to school. I researched different kinds of schools, like, Montessori, where it's more guided by their interests and they have more choice in what they get to do. And then there were different cooperative schools where the parents actually own the school, and the parents were the board, and the parents were teachers and stuff like that. So I found a school that was that seemed to be like in alignment with my value. My basic value was like, don't treat kids like shit. Like, just, oh my gosh, just be kind. Like, oh. So then I found a school, and I basically just said, like, I'm certified teacher. I don't have a job. I'd love to just like be a fly on the wall. Can I just come and like sit in on your class, you know, in your classrooms, and just help where I can? I'll volunteer. I basically was just like, I'll be a volunteer. And that's what I did. And it was just so beautiful, the school that I was in, that you could just, the difference of just how they treated the kids, and like how the learning happened was just like night and day. I ended up staying there, and they ended up hiring me because basically eventually they needed someone. So I was like an assistant there. And so then I was thinking that we did want to have kids, my husband and I. And then I was thinking that, you know, when I have kids, maybe I'll just open up I'll have like a daycare center, some kind of place where, you know, I'll have my babies with me, and I can take care of another couple of other babies. So I went to this training by the state. You have to like do this training to make sure your house is safe and everything is, you have your credentials for that. So I did that, and then I had my baby, and didn't end up doing any of that. Like, I just had my baby and was home with my babies. And like, to think back now, I think that like I still was in that mindset that like I needed to prove my worth. Like, well, once I have a baby, well, I'm not going to go back to work, but maybe I'll show value by taking care of other people's babies and treating them kindly and gently and the way that I want to raise my babies. So that was still in my mind, like, of like, this is going to show that I have value, that I have this job, that I have this daycare center, you know? And so then when the baby came along, oh my God, it was just so much with the baby. Because right when you're a first time mom, like, just the sleepless nights alone, like, you don't sleep, and like, it was just really, really, really hard. Like, I didn't want to do it for anybody else's baby. It was so hard just my own baby. Oh my God. So I just ended up just with my baby and being a stay-at-home mom, which like we kind of always planned for. Like, even before we had kids, like, we knew that my husband knew that he would be the single earner. And we had like, he is very plan based and like very spreadsheet based. So we made a plan so that we paid off all of my bills, and I had no debt before we got married and stuff. So should I stop there?
No, go on.
Okay.
It's so interesting.
Okay, so
I really love to learn you like this. That's amazing. Please go on.
okay, so then yeah, so like I always knew too, learning about the unschooling. Well, that had came along. I know you called it non-schooling. I guess you could call it's either way, unschooling, non-schooling. I think the term that's like well known among us is unschoolers. Basically living without school, as if school doesn't exist. And along with that, like, that was when I started working at the co-op. I remember Googling like, why is it so hard? Like, why does school suck so bad? Like, why is it so hard why do kids hate school so much? And because I hated it as a teacher. And then I came across a podcast called School Sucks. And it was basically a podcast where he talked about why it sucks so much and how public school came about. And basically, yes, public school came about because back in the industrial revolution, where, you know, you needed workers for these big factories. And basically, that's why schools came about. You needed to train all of them to be able to do all the same certain thing for whatever. He explains it much better, but how it came about, and all the podcasts just talked about all of the alternatives, and really like how learning happens, what is learning, and how we just assume that it can only happen in a classroom, and that's all we know, really. And then it kind of comes full circle with the whole awakening thing too, because it's like, this is all we know. It's all we knew all this time of what to be human, what it is to be like a human being. Like I always, like since I was little, I always thought that, yeah, you need to have value. You need to, as a human, do what's right and do what, you know, be a good little girl and do what's right. Don't do what's wrong and add value to the world. And that's what makes you human. That's what makes you, a proper human. Anyways, so then I started listening to the podcast. That's when I learned about unschooling. And so I knew it even before my kids were born that they wouldn't go to school. And of course, I spoke about it with my husband because he also saw me going through the struggle of like loving being around the children and wanting to do that job, but like, oh my God, why is it so hard? And so he saw me going through that struggle. And then when I learned about unschooling and everything else, he also learned about it too, because you find this great thing and share it with your partner. And so yeah, and even like with the unschooling thing comes, because basically unschooling is natural learning, and along with that is like natural parenting, or what they could call like attachment parenting or peaceful parenting. Um, and so I always knew, like before my babies were born, that I would always treat my babies like they could understand me. I wouldn't, like I learned through this woman Janet Lansbury. She has a book called No Bad Kids. And she talks about how even with your little babies, like you should say to them, I'm going to pick you up now, as if they understand you. Because it's like they, they're not just a hunk of meat. Like they're not just, they're actually, there's something there. It's also full circle, right? There's something there in that little human that also, needs to be seen, right? So like I always would tell people around me, like, like, because when they're babies too, you just let me carry the baby, and you pass the baby back to each other and you just grab the baby, and it's like, actually, can you just let her know? Can you just say, I'm gonna hold you now? And even if you think she doesn't understand you, like, just tell her, like, just say it to her, like, just get her ready for it. So she's not, So of course, like, people think it's crazy, right? People think it's crazy. Like,
yeah, I know people think that, but it's not at all.
Like, baby doesn't understand you. And it's like,
of course they do.
Right. Like, but then again, that's all you know. You were taught that the baby doesn't understand you. So that's what you think, and that's what you know. And like, so it's so when you say those things too, when I say those words too, like think and know, yeah, full circle again. But like, so then, I always treated my children that way. Like I always just tried to um not treat them like they were just this thing to be manipulated. And, also I learned also through the peaceful parenting thing that, like, to let them have their feelings. Like if they're sad or if they fall, like we're so used to that. Like they fall and it's like, no, you're okay. You're okay. It's okay. You're okay. Like, and then after you learn about how, like, what you're doing there, it's one thing. But then actually once you feel it, after you have the glimpse and you see through the self, you actually, you can, I don't know, you just sense that what you're doing there is like, you're not okay seeing your little baby in pain. You're not okay with that. Moms, like we were saying before we started, there's something about motherhood. There's something about womanhood and motherhood that, like, it's, there's something, oh, it's hard to see your baby cry. So, so to say you're okay, it's like you're basically saying, no, you're okay to yourself, because you don't, you don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel that. You don't want your baby to feel it. So like I never said you're okay. Like I would always just, yeah, I would say
Are you?
it's
Are you
no,
okay?
yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say,
Or
oh my
ask.
God, what was that? Was that scary? Or
Yeah.
what was that
Yeah.
like? Or do you feel that was scary, huh? Like, oh, you feel scared, or um, I would just stay calm basically and just stay in that neutral space of like, okay, I'm here looking at you.
Yeah.
I'm here holding the space for you, that like, okay. And then you're also more clear that like, are they okay, right? Because then you can see if they really, are they hurt? Do you need to go to the hospital? Like, or is it, I don't know, it's just like a whole.
Yeah, but also just creating that space for that. Sometimes when a child falls, they might be startled, or something else might happen in them that has nothing to do with the fall. And as parents, we need to create that space for that. We need to create, that calm space, that it can be completely over the top crying for something that didn't hurt, but something else needs to be expressed. And how is the child supposed to know that what happened in kindergarten earlier, or what happened with my brother or sister earlier, really, really affected me? So now I have an outlet. So now I'm extra crying because I need the
Oh, I can let it
reassurance and
out
the
now,
comfort and
yeah.
all of
Or
that. So it's like we need to stay humble. Just because we're adults doesn't mean that we know anything about what's going on in the child. So it's all about
yes,
just creating the space. And if a child cries more than what we believe is normal or needed in the situation, then stay humble and know that, okay, I know nothing. The child clearly needs,
oh yeah,
comfort and reassurance and kisses and hugs. And then you give that as a parent.
yes. And that's perfect, like what you said too, where it's like, I know nothing of what's going on. Like, because in every aspect of what's happening with that child, you don't know what's going on. And like, but we think as adults that we do, and that we need to fix it,
Yeah, and
you
and
know?
also and also we also assume that the child has a brain capacity and a brain and intellectual function as we do. So if
Right.
a child falls, we can see it's not that bad, but we don't know what is going on beyond the fall, you know?
Yes.
So we can't project our, knowing that wasn't that bad into the situation, because we have no idea. For the child, that might be like the worst. Or one of the examples I use in the awakening curriculum is that part that when you know if you put a blue bead into the yellow beads and somebody goes like, you that doesn't go there, we don't know if that shame feeling that the child feels, that is just so shameful. For us, it's just about beads. That's nothing. But we have no idea what is
Yeah.
going on in the child, and we need to stay humble. We need to really look at the little human being having an
Yeah.
experience that we can't explain, the child can't explain. So we just need to create space for whatever is going on and just be there for that.
Yeah. And it's just so hard to do that when you have all of these preconceived notions of how it should be and how you should be as a mother and what you should do
Yeah.
to stop this or to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. And it's just so hard to do when you can't even feel your own discomfort and sadness over your child's sadness.
Yeah.
Like, I was telling my friend, she's kind of a new mom, and it's like, I know that you want her to be okay, but really, like, look to see that can you feel that you're not okay because she's not okay? Like, that's where you need to start. Like, feel this first
Yeah.
before you tell her that she's okay,
Yeah.
because that's going to serve her more.
Yeah.
When you can stay here first and feel like, oh my God, it's like, it hurts, but they would just want to push that away. We just want to push that away. And so I think what you said too about what parents don't know the brain function. If even just that, if parents just knew the brain functioning of children, like how children's brains form, and there were certain parts that are not formed yet that
Oh
give them
yeah.
the ability to do certain things.
Like, yeah,
That just
but
alone,
also just like consequence. We're so busy teaching children the consequence. When you do that, that will happen. That part of the brain doesn't get formed until they're well into their teens. I mean, we might as well not do it. There's no point in going like, see, that's what you get. You know, the child have no idea what just happened because that
I
part of the
know.
brain is not formed. So it's very much about really just staying in the moment. Also, what you said with the with your friend, talking to her about, can you look into, you know, that you're not okay, but also be open about it. I have experienced sometimes that my children have fallen or gone into a door, or, you know, something has happened and I have gotten really, really startled. Then I can say that, oh my God, I got so startled. Are you
Yeah.
okay? You know, because I got startled, you know, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Oh wow, are you sure? I'm completely. So just keep it here, keep it here, keep it here, and whatever they say is their truth, and what I'm experiencing is my truth.
Yeah. This is yeah, no, I forget what I was going to say just then, but I wanted to read a definition of unschooling because it's also like what you said, like we don't know. Um, Unschooling is natural learning. So somebody asked the woman that I follow, that her name is Sandra Dodd. She's like the pioneer, like or first person who really started spreading like the word about it. Um, so they asked her, so if it's natural learning, what is natural learning, and how is that different from learning at school and perhaps in homeschool? And she says, unschooling is providing an environment in which learning can flourish. School prescribes what should be learned and in what order, and then they build an assembly line and put all the students on it. They reward those who get through easily and punish others. School at home, which is basically what people think that I do. They're like, "Oh, you homeschool, so cool." School at home is like an assembly line for one. So basically, you're taking all of the right now. You're taking all the principles, the same shit they do at school, and now you're doing it at home. But I guess so there's a wide range of how women, I say women, but homeschooling parents do it with their kids. But for the most part, it's basically yes, you get in the curriculum and then you follow the curriculum. Unschooling is a way to homeschool, but without the schoolishness. Things can be learned in whatever order they come along, and the learner will eventually connect all the information he has gathered, but maybe not in the same way or in the same order as the assembly line would have had him do it. So, and then I'll just read the end. When a child's life is full of sights, sounds, tastes, smells, textures, people, and places, he will learn. When he feels safe and loved, he will learn. When parents begin to recover from their own ideas of what learning should look like, what they remember from school, then they begin a new life of natural learning too. And so like it brings it back to what you said, like you don't even know what's going on in their brain. Like when they're learning things, like my children are 5 and 7, and my son knows how to read, write, and do math, and we've never done any kind of formal lesson ever. I have never had him sit down and say, listen, we're doing this worksheet, you got to practice this, you got to practice your ABCs, you got to write down, this is how you do it. Like never ever once have we done that. And he does all of it. He does reading, writing, and math. My daughter is also learning exquisitely without any kind of formal learning. And it's because, like you said, you don't, like in their emotional state, you don't know what's going on with them. And when they're learning and when the information is coming to them, you don't know what's going on. Like you don't know how they're connecting that, what what the number 2 means. Like that concept of 2 means 1, 2. You don't know like how they like 5 plus 2 on a worksheet. Like my son never did a 5 plus 2 worksheet, and yet and still he knows math because you can't see what all the connections that are made are being had by just looking at them. But you can only see through your own lens
Yeah,
of what you think learning looks like, how you learned it.
yeah.
But that's not how learning happens.
No, but it's also, I mean, I think the majority of people, I love math, and the majority of people, they have that, you know, that attitude. Why should we learn math in school? I mean, why? And most people don't understand why we should learn it. But when you unschool, you learn, if you have your children, if the children is a part of your life, like a normal part of your life, then they are with you when you are shopping, when you are cooking, when you are doing everything, they're with you. So if we need 250 grams of flour, then you put the child up on the kitchen table and they get the flour and it needs to say 250, pour into it says 250. Then they will learn what 250 is, how much it is, and then they can see the size and the volume and all of that. So it's just a normal part of life is that we put petrol on the car and they can see the numbers running like that, so they will learn the numbers. They can, and it's just, we use math and language and reading and writing in so many different ways in our lives. We don't have to sit down and do it in a book. I mean, just reading a book makes a child curious, so he or she wants to read as well because you read.
Right,
you know,
right.
it's very much about the children. Children don't do what we say, they do what we do. So if you just go about life being a decent human being and using your head in what you do, the children will too.
Yeah. And right, it's just that and that's why I think she defines it that way too, because it's not like, oh, they'll learn, don't worry. It's like you as the adult have to make sure that, you're providing all these experiences and textures and smells, and you're
Including
engaging with them. Yeah. And it's like, my daughter was making slime the other day, and that's when the measurements came in. It's like these things that they naturally want to do. Like my son learned how to read, write, and do math because there was a purpose for it. He's never been turned off to like learning about it, because it's not just this boring thing that he's supposed to do. It's like, oh, I actually need to figure out how much this is so I can play this game. I need to figure out how to read because so I can understand how to do this and how to communicate with other people. Like everything that they learn has a purpose to it. It's never been, well, just memorize this and you're going to need it maybe later on in life.
I have an 11-year-old niece that is queer, and she obviously speaks Danish. And there was this YouTube channel in English that she really, really liked. And she tried to put on the subtitles for Danish, but there wasn't any subtitles in Danish because it's a very difficult language in writing. So she put on the subtitles in English and learned English. She's
holy cow.
Absolutely fluent in English.
What?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were visiting we were visiting now for the summer holiday, and I was sitting there with my sister and my niece, and we were sitting and talking, and she even corrected my sister, going like, no, it's not school leader, it's principal. She knows words that a normal 11-year-old child wouldn't pick up in a second language anyway.
That's beautiful. And she goes to school, regular school?
Yeah, well, no, not a regular school. I didn't attend a regular school either. In Denmark, we have something called free school, which is like a free school where it's very much the focus is very much on music and arts, and while you are at the school, you need to learn to play every instrument and sing. So there's lots of and also have artistic expression and.
That's beautiful.
It's very much in the focus. And my sister, she's a teacher at that school now.
Oh, well, I knew about free school, but like Sudbury School, like it's basically like what I'm doing here, but they have an environment where they just let the children choose and they offer them different experiences at school instead of at home. But I didn't realize it was about music and art and stuff. How beautiful.
Yeah, and also at the school, it's like in a out, in open fields and down to a fjord, and there are no fences around. And I remember attending the school that we were told not to go to the beach, so we never went to the beach because we were told not to. So it's just that it's a complete, and there's a buddy system, so the elderly take care of one. They get at one child that they see through the 0 class, the first class, second and third grade. So one of the older children get a child that they follow and help with school and where's your lunchbox and all that. So it's a completely different system.
Wow.
But it is different in Scandinavia than it is in America, for sure. Absolutely.
Right. I also have an 11-year-old niece.
I just want to circle back to what you talked about, that part of children being like complete, human beings, and obviously have an opinion about things, even though they are children and don't know consequences and all of that. Just like when my children, they were, we're talking 3 months old, 4 months old, they started to choose what outfit they wanted. And obviously they couldn't point because they had no idea they had hands. But if I held 2 outfits up in front of them, they would look at one of them more than they would look at the other one. And in my eyes, that is how they chose. That was the attractive one.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, we're 28 years back in time, it was 1995. And I remember that people had that, like, they can't choose. I was like, of course they can. Of course they can. And also being out shopping, if you look at it like you walking around with your wish list of all the things you want, of course a child will like just one thing and you say no. Of course you're going to have tantrums and all that. But if you include the child in the shopping and go like, we need cucumbers. Which of these cucumbers should we have? You have chosen the cucumbers, but you put them in front of the child and the child go, that one. Great. That's the cucumber we take. And then you include the child, could you carry the toilet paper? And then they carry the big bag of toilet paper and are included in it. So they are also a part of the wish list that you're walking around with and buying from. So it's that part of including the child and everything that's important.
And seeing that they're not a hunk of meat to be, controlled, and letting them choose, letting them have a choice. Letting them be seen that, like, oh, I get to choose a cucumber. All right, yes, I'm down with that. Like.
So how was it, if you look back and at that part of the unschooling and being a mom and all of that, before awakening and after awakening? Is there anything which you can see is a difference? Because I had my children after, so I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, when you talk about the food shopping too, there's also something called radical unschooling, which is basically not just with learning that they get to choose, it's with all of life. Like, if they want to eat ice cream for breakfast every day, or even for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the radically unschooling community would say, they let them do that, let them figure out what they want, what they need, notice, help them notice what their body feels like, help them notice, offer them all the other things too, always have a platter out for them to choose this and this and this, not just, okay, that's what you want, I'm just going to get you only that or offer you only that forever. But it's like letting them choose what they want to eat. They don't have to eat, letting them figure out what it is to really to make that choice. And that you may be scared that they'll only eat candy for the rest of their life, but in reality, you'll see that won't happen, that they will start asking you for the broccoli if you offer it. So that's part of that. And also when it comes to screen time, how much TV are they going to watch? You can't let them watch all that TV. You can't, if you let your daughter watch TV as much as she wants and you don't give any limits, then she'll watch TV all day, every day, and won't do anything else. Parents are so certain of it, right? We just know what's going to happen. We'll know what happens.
Because we would eat ice cream all the time if we didn't know about calories, and if we didn't have to go to work, we would sit on Netflix. I mean, look what happened during 2020 and 2021. What did people do? Well, they grew in their cozy pants and watched Netflix all the time. Yeah. So it's like we're just projecting ourselves. If you what do you have at home? If you don't have candy because you don't eat it, and you don't have ice cream because you don't eat it. Then the choice is between broccoli, potatoes, cauliflower, carrots. What do
Right,
you want?
that's true.
And
Yep,
then
yep,
the child can eat whatever they want. So it's also about your habits,
yeah,
But
yeah.
we're so busybody correcting our children into them being perfect, and yet we're not. Who is buying the ice cream, for crying out loud? If there's ice cream in the house, there's only one to blame, and it's not the child.
Yep, yep, yep. It's so true. So there's that kind of, in that domain where it's like this basically just trust
Yeah.
that, you know what, they're gonna figure it out. And they don't need to be forced or shamed to do that.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
absolutely on board with that. I'm
they
absolutely
don't,
on
and
board with that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so
That's how I did with
yeah.
Ben.
So that can tie into how when I first um I started joining the cause and like joined LU after seeing your YouTube videos. And so Vince's call, uh and when I started, when I was on LU, I got a guide and then was watching your videos. And then so I got on to Vince's call and I joined a couple. And then there was one that, where you and Todd were there, or at least Todd was there. And I was stressing about, because, right, so my son, yes, he learned how to do all of this reading, writing, and doing math mostly through just playing video games on his computer. Like, he will sit at the computer, for hours. And so because of what I've learned about unschooling, it's like, they'll say when I brought this, because I'm part of this unschooling community where you ask questions and you have video calls just the same with other unschooling moms that have questions. And like, because it's such a crazy thing, right? We're crazy moms out here letting them sit there for hours at a time, right? So so basically, from what I've heard from my peers, my unschooling community, is that, like, yeah, if you're worried about him sitting at the screen, just like, notice that he actually does get up. He does get up sometimes, because in our mind it's like, oh my God, they sit there for hours and they never get up. And it's like, actually, you do see him get up and like do other things. That like he'll write something down to like figure out his game, or he'll like go over there and start drawing, or he'll get something to eat, or he'll, he does get up. Just notice that, you're saying that and it's not true. It's not an absolute. Also, get him a ball to bounce on. Instead of sitting in a chair, you could get him one of these yoga balls, so that he moves his body a little more. He has to use his balance to sit down on the ball. Put up a trampoline, these little trampolines that you can, a kid trampoline, you could jump on. He's jumping on the computer, playing on it, and jumping on the computer, jumping on the trampoline, playing on the computer at the same time. So basically all these things. Also, just connect with your child. Like, maybe you're feeling scared that like you're in this thought pattern of like, oh my God, like what's going to happen to them if they sit there all day. And go sit down next to him and talk to him. Get curious about what he's doing. Maybe you'll see like he wants to share something with you. Maybe what you're seeking is connection with your son. Maybe you're just, you missed him and that's why you want him to get up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so all of
Or,
these
or,
things.
or just be interesting. Be
Yes,
interesting. Because
right.
kids want to be with the parents,
Yes,
I'm going to do laundry. Do you want to help? Or
yes,
I'm going to play a board game. Do you want to play a board game?
right.
I'm going to bake buns. Do you want to bake buns?
Totally, yeah.
Kids want to be with you. They want
Yes,
to be with the parents. So it's also about be interesting. Be the
yes,
person that other people want to be with, and the kids want to be with you.
yes, absolutely. Instead of just like, no, you need to do this, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's part of the offering a learning rich environment. Like, have other things to offer. Hey, look at this. I got this new game over here. Hey, look what I'm doing over here. I'm painting this thing. Like, you want to try this? Look what I got over here. Legos, like, like, not, and no, you have to stop that and start doing this. It's just like, hey, look what I got. You know what I mean? Like, so, but I was still really struggling with that a lot. And so when I was on the call, and I was just so like stressed out about it, because my son would not, in my mind, I'm like, he just sits there all day. Like, he needs fresh air. Like, we need to like go outside and get some fresh air. Like, I need to. And so we were talking about something about like beliefs. And so that's what I said. I said, you know, I want to have the belief. I don't want to have the belief that he needs fresh air. How do I let go of that belief? Like, how do I not have these beliefs? And Todd was like, well, the problem isn't that you believe that. The problem is that you think you're the one who's believing it. You think you are believing it. Like, you know, like, where is the you? So that's because when I would read about, like, when I would listen to non-dual videos and on repeat forever for years, and I would read about non-duality, like, I would hear people say that, like, you know, ask who am I? Who am I? And I'd be like, okay, I would say I would ask, but it didn't really, I didn't really see. And then, like, but he was like, but like, I wrote down the question he asked, like, where are you? Where is the Jahida? Like, that's so frustrated over this. And I'm like, well, it's my body. I'm this. I'm here. This is who I am. I'm like behind the skin. I'm inside the skin. So he's like, well, when you get frustrated over your son and you feel like you need to do something, ask yourself, what feels like it's being assumed to be a self in this moment? Like, where is the self in this moment where you feel so frustrated and scared? Like, and so, and that's where it all began, or ended, I should say, because then after that call, I would notice, like, oh, the me is this contraction. It's here. It's like, it's here. It's behind my eyes. It's in my stomach. It's there. There it is. That's me. I knew that that's me. Here I am. Every time that I got frustrated, I would do that. I would ask myself, what feels like it's being assumed to be me? Where is it? And I would do it every time. And then, because that's basically what he said. Like, it has nothing to do with your son. It's like, who is the person who thinks they need to fix this? So I would do that every time. And then it wasn't until like a month after or something, but I had realized that I kept doing that. And then I had the LU guide too. And then I was reading the Gateless Gatecrashers book.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like all at the same time. And I got like, I came down with, like, every night I would have a horrible headache to the point where, like, I was crying. Like, I didn't know, like, what, my head hurt so bad. And it would only be at nighttime, like before I would go to sleep, like, or around 5 or 6 o'clock. It would just be a pounding, like, debilitating headache night after night. And then finally I was like, I'm just gonna go to the doctor. Like, what is happening? Like, maybe I have a brain tumor or something. Like, why? What? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And so I went to the doctor, and he was like, well, you know, looking back now, he did ask me, he's like, well, do you have some kind of stress going on in your life? Or do you, you know, is there something going on in your life? I'm like, no, like, I had no idea. I didn't even think about how I kept looking into the self every time I felt that tension. I would always look at it until it dissolved. I would say, it's here, it's here. And then it would go away, and I'd just go about my day, right? Like, totally, like, it didn't look like it on the outside, but, like, that's how it felt on the inside. Like, I'm here, I feel myself, I'm here. And so then the doctor asked me, like, is there anything going on? I'm like, no, nothing. Everything's great. Great, it's fine. So, yeah, it wasn't until after that I actually realized, like, oh my God, that, like, because I never really got an answer of what. He's like, well, I'm not going to put you on any drugs, because the drugs, you know, that stops it from happening the next time. But if it just goes away on its own, and I'm like, but do you mean that some people just get migraines, like, without any explanation, and they just give them the drugs to stop the symptoms from happening, I guess. So yeah, so he's like, yeah, you know, I don't know, just call me in a week, just see, you know. I'm like, maybe it's like something that I'm eating, because I, like, stopped eating eggs at that time too. I thought it was because I stopped eating eggs. Anyway, so then Then after the headaches, there was one morning that I woke up and something was like different. It just seemed like things were happening and I wasn't like, it was just like everything was just happening.
Mm.
And kind of like effortlessly. And I was like, I wrote to my LU guide. I'm like, it's just like I woke up this morning and when I opened my eyes, I was like, huh, something's different. Like when I opened my eyes and then when I went about my day, like something was like felt like it just, I don't know, something was just different. And he's like, oh yeah, great. And then it was a couple days later that I had a workout class and I thought it started at 12, no, I thought it started at 12:30. So I was on my way and then I realized on my way that it started at 12. And so it was only a 30-minute class. So I just figured, let me just wait for the guy because it was like a spin class. So I wanted to make sure I had the right shoes for the next class. And because I had just joined that gym and so I was like, I'll just wait for him. And just the week before that, on one of Vince's calls too, there were some things that were said that kind of impacted me, I guess. Um, and one of the things that he said, Vince said it, are your thoughts being objectively descriptive or are they opinionated judgments? And he said, like notice which are they being. And so when I sat there waiting for the guy to open the door because the class was going to be over soon. And I noticed all of the judgments, all of the opinionated judgments. And I was just berating myself. How are you so stupid? How could you miss that class? Now you're going to be charged $25 because you missed it. Don't you know, like, such a waste of money. You might as well just throw that cash right in the garbage, take it out of and this is something that my husband has said before, and it's just part of my conditioning. Might as well take the cash out of your pocket, throw it right in the garbage can, because what a waste of money. Now, how could you have not known that was at 12? What were you thinking? Like, it was just like, you're so irresponsible. You need to fucking get it together. You're an adult. You need to, and it was just, Pernille, and I tell you, like, it was just like it
Yeah.
was all one after the other. And then I remembered what Ben said, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, opinionated judgments. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm like, what's objectively descriptive? And I'm like, looked up at the sign in the window. I was like, oh, there's a sign in the window. It's like got some color on it. My ass, it's cold because I'm sitting on the sidewalk and it's a cold pavement. What else is objectively descriptive right now? Like, that's it. Like, like I'm seeing that, I'm feeling this, and the end. And then the guy opened the door and I talked to him and like I didn't feel any shame though. Like when I went inside to talk to him, I wasn't like, oh my God, can you believe I'm so sorry? I thought it was this time and I got it wrong. And I was just like, oh, I missed the class. Can you tell me, are these the right shoes for the next class? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, okay, no problem. Like,
It's
oh,
so
we won't charge you.
unfortunate.
Don't worry. Like, it's no problem. I was like, okay. And then it was on the way home that I was just like, that was when I was like, oh, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my God, what was I like? I was making it so hard my whole life
Yeah.
because I thought that my thoughts, that was another thing that was said in the call, like, your thoughts are promising you satisfaction. And I was like, but all of those thoughts were promising me satisfaction. Like, if you just get this right, you'll be okay and you'll be happy. Like, if you just don't miss workout classes, don't waste your money, make sure you do that all right, then you'll be happy.
Yes.
Just get it. Like, and then, like, that was when I realized that my whole life I was trying to figure out how to get it right. And I needed to get it right. Like, and so then that in that moment, I was like, oh my God. But like, there is no getting it right because it's just this here, right here.
Yes.
It's just what is always right and fine.
Yeah.
And like, and there was something else that Phil said on the call where he said, thoughts he said, experience is undifferentiated, undivided. Thoughts can only refer to parts and relationships between parts, so they're obviously not describing experience.
Exactly.
And I was like, and that was like too, when I was like, all of these things were happening where I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Every thought that I had that was a sliver of this whole was trying to fix this whole when it's like every moment, but like my thoughts are behind it, trying to fix it and trying to figure out this.
Yes.
And so that's when I was just like, oh my God, like I just couldn't. And yes, and then so I could see, like I didn't notice that there was no self, but I could see what the thoughts were doing to me and the reality of what this is here now and how the thoughts had nothing to do with this here now. So I was like, it was beautiful. And I was just, you know, I just knew that I could never figure it out. I realized that I could never fix it or figure it out or make it right. And so like I took my kids somewhere that night too, and it's just like I was just like, it's just, you know, you feel so peaceful and you just, yeah, you just know that everything's okay. You just know that it's okay. So
Yeah.
that was like the biggest difference, that I know that it's okay. And then, you know, the next day when there's the thing with my son, it's like everything just felt like it was whatever I needed to say to him, even if it was get off the computer, like it could be that, but it was coming from like this empty,
Yes.
like the words were coming from emptiness. Like it was just like they weren't coming from. Studies show that if you let your child get on the computer this many hours a day, the study shows that the screen time is like what is it? The screen time is like an addiction, like a something happens in the brain similar to when you do like heroin or something. So none of that was happening, but I could still say the words, and they would just come, but not from this,
Yeah.
like just from like this open like emptiness. And everything that happened came from like this, like it just happened. Everything was just kind of realized to be random.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I could see
No,
that.
no identification with any of it. And any thought that comes about anything is not connected to something. It's just a random thought, you know, popping into your head, and it only becomes real and reality when you believe it and react to it. As it is, it's just a thought. I mean, elephants are flying, sheeps are white, my son shouldn't sit too much in front of the computer. It's just a random thought, you know. I would just like to pause for a second, and this is for everybody that is watching this far. If you how I'm going to say that, the insight that you had, where you realized that promise of satisfaction that the mind has, that if you do this, then that would happen. Everybody that is sitting and watching and have heard what we talked about with unschooling, how many thoughts have you had about, if you don't take your child to school, then this will happen, or if you take your child to school, then this will happen, but you need to take your child to school because that will make it better for the socialization, or you need to teach your child, you know, languages and math. If you don't do that, then they will never ever do good in life. Look at how much promise of satisfaction is in that thought. Look at how much identification is in that truth, and question it. And that is the experience that Jahaida had the day sitting with the cold bum in front of the gym. It's, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard because I remember when I used to have to do the non-duality, all the calls after call after call, like, and I just didn't get it because I wasn't really looking, I wasn't really doing the inner work. I don't know well, how do you call that? I mean, it's inquiry, right? I wasn't really inquiring. When you just say, who am I? you just think, well, I mean, the average person, I'm a mother, I work here, but, or if you just say, who am I? You're like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, kind of. But when Todd had me do like, okay, where is it? Like, really, who am I? Like, where?
Yeah.
What?
Where? Yeah.
Like so I remember I used to ask the question on the calls, like, but if I don't, yeah, like if I don't make them do a thing, then what's going to happen? Like, how,
Yeah.
right. But the thing is like, you can, once you realize, once you see through the self, the actions can still be had, because that's the difference. I think people think, well, I'll just not do anything then or something, or, I'll just, I'll make the wrong choices or something, but the choices will still, like, the actions will still come, but they'll just come from somewhere else.
Identifying, yeah, yeah, it's just happening. There's no identification with it. There's no one behind that decision. There's no one that is attached to your son needs to get up from the computer now and play a board game. There's no one attached to that. Whatever is transpiring is what is happening right now, and there's no one directing in the decision of it. There's no mom being a bad mom if he's sitting too much in front of the computer, and there's nobody knowing how much is too much, because there's nothing that can be added or subtracted from this moment right now, which means that nothing can be wrong. And as long as we keep interfering with what is happening, all the problems happen. It's also why I find it very important to leave the kids alone, to leave them alone, be there as a parental guidance, be there to, one of the huge tricks to teach children to eat vegetables, or to have children to eat vegetables, it's not talking about it. Keep it a secret. Cut out carrots, have peanuts, all of that on the table where they can hardly see it. And then you go and munch of it. You don't talk about it. It's a secret. They will look at what you have there in that bowl. Can I have one? Yeah, of course you can. Then you don't talk about it. It's not a big deal. It's just what I'm doing, and then they will be doing it too. So there's not that drilling anything into their heads. It is just what is happening, and then things will happen all by itself. And maybe they like broccoli, and maybe they don't. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not telling them what they should think about it or something.
No,
Right.
you don't have to. You don't have to. We're so deluded when we believe that as adults or as parents that we know better. We don't. Who are we to know? Who are we to know? And when we start to interfere with what is actually transpiring, that is when we stand in the way from the experience that the child has. Obviously, you need to teach the child the things that I'm also talking about in the awakening curriculum. But they need to have a healthy sense of self. They need to have that feeling of clear boundaries. They need to know about self-care, how it feels when they're tired, and you solve that by going to bed. How it feels when you're thirsty, and that's how you solve it. For example, with my kids, I never potty trained my children, because having a full diaper is so disgusting that they will learn on their own. You don't need to force them to potty train. They will learn on their own, because
Well, if they're putting them in daycare, then they need to be potty trained. That's the problem too, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if you don't do all that, things happen on their own.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they can
And
have
then
a natural nature.
then it's just telling the child, I'm just going to pee, do you want to come? And then they just tag along and see you're doing it, and at some point they question why they're not using the toilet. And then we had like one of those seats with a step ladder up.
Yeah.
That was attached to the toilet all the time. So when we needed the toilet, we needed to take it off and on all the time, but it was available for the child to go on the toilet whenever they wanted. And
Right, making it easier for them.
it's that non-interfering that just makes things transpire completely naturally. And then, like you talked about earlier, that if there's any kind of fear about not being good enough or anything that is happening in you, own that is that you are identifying with something that is not, has nothing to do with your child. It's about you identifying with something that you need to look at. The child is fine. If you step out of the way, the child is fine. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't say the last one. It's boundaries, and then it's self-love and self-worth. But self-worth comes all by itself. If the others are fulfilled, that's like a trickle-down effect.
When you said that you had the little ladder there, yeah, like making it easy for them or helping them, like, yeah. Just, I think what I want to talk about, what we were talking about on the last call I was on with you, about how, so basically I could see that it's like unschooling full circle, kind of, because it's like this trust for the natural thing that happens, like how naturally learning happens. I can trust that. I can see it. I can naturally choosing the right foods, that, like, oh, I can see that, oh, I had never had to interfere with any of those things because I trusted. I didn't believe what everybody else was saying about how, no, you got to force them, or no, you got to punish them, or you got to reward them when they do something right. Like, everything has come so naturally. So it's like, yeah, when you're not identified with the self, you trust life, kind of. You don't trust life, but it's just this happening that's just, there's not a problem.
No, and there's no questioning. There's nothing. What is happening right now, that nothing can be any better or be any worse. It is as it is, and there's no value put into it that is better or worse, which also means that there's no doing right or doing wrong. There's just happening. There's just doing. There's like no attachment to what is transpiring. And just like I mean, when you left school, you weren't complete. A lot of things you have learned, you have learned a lot of things from when you left school until this moment you're sitting right now. And it's not somebody that has been standing over you and controlling and making sure that you read everything there was to read about unschooling. Right. You figured that out all by yourself. Why do we believe that the children are any different? If we just live our lives from that space, then they will copy. They will copy.
Yeah. Yeah. But with all the conditioning that says otherwise, it's like hard to see through it. It's hard to, unless you actually see through the self, you can't see through it. Because the self is all of those ideas and that conditioning.
Yeah, and all that attachment. So may I ask you, how has it been when you have been like at barbecue at friend's house and people have, and you talk to them about motherhood, the way that you view motherhood now when you awaken, and compared to how you view motherhood before you were awakened? Being at a barbecue, how was the interaction, or what has changed, or is there anything to talk about?
Yeah, I don't, I actually, when I share, because most of the time I just say that we homeschool, so people think that's what I do, like I do school at home, but people are like shocked when I tell them that we don't.
You are a teacher. You are a teacher. It is responsible.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, they think that makes it even better. Oh, you know how to do that. You're able to do that. Like, you can homeschool because you know how to do that. And it's just like, no, actually, I'm not doing that. Like, people, like mothers think that they need like some kind of certification to teach their children. And it's like, no, actually, you're the best teacher, and you don't even need to teach them. All you need to do is be the facilitator for them and be there for them and help them. Yeah. But people, I think people think that they're just shocked. Most people that are just like, what? You don't make them practice? Like, I think, in their minds, they're like, that's so irresponsible. That's not good, like, but but like, I've done a lot of work around it too with when people question it because of my unschooling mom group that supports each other and that's tells you, we support each other on how, like, yes, it comes back to inner work. What are you afraid of that they're thinking about about judging you?
There we go.
That's how you need to ask yourself. You're the question, why are you unschooling? Come back of like why you're doing this and what you know to be true and why you do it because that's the only thing you need to put. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to prove it to them. And that's the thing too is like even with my closest family members like my mother and my father, my stepfather, my mother-in-law, they're all not judgmental at all. And I think it's because they see how wonderful the children are. It's all right. They're all right. They're doing just fine. Because that's the thing with, mainstream parenting is like, they're not going to be all right. You got to make sure they're all right. Like, you got to do this because this is always been done. This is how it's done to me. This is, but like all of my parents know, thank God too, because, I'm lucky that I know that some other unschooling moms, like their close family members are very disapproving and very, they get in fights over it and or even they lose touch with their family members because they fight over it or they just can't be around them because then their own family members are treating the children the way that us unschooling moms are at our values are being disrespected kind of like no, that's why they're not in school because I don't want them to be treated that way, so but my own family members and those closest to me, thank God, are all very supportive. Never question me, never question if I'm doing the right thing, never say, you should be scared, kind of. So even before having like the glimpse that I was very like, firm in my like conviction of like why I was doing it and like never really let it bother me when some people would say things like, well, they do need socialization, like, and I'd be like, yeah, what is socialization? Is socialization like you're in the same classroom every single day with 20 people that you see every day and the same teacher, the one teacher that's of a different age, everybody else is the same age? Like my kids, they socialize. We go to the park, we go to the grocery store, we go places. There's people of all ages, all walks of life that we are around and we talk to and can, you know, be around and socialize with. The real socialization is just being around all kinds of people, not just ones your same age. But so because I already know that like, yeah, that's not true. I know what you're saying isn't true. And also like the one time that my sister-in-law was like, well, I mean, that's great, but like for high school, you're gonna have to put them in school. Because it's like in their mind, it's like, oh, well, in high school, that's when things get harder. Like you're not gonna be able to teach her whatever advanced science. It's like, no, that's not true. Like you can become an expert at anything for free called using something called the internet. Like, did you know that exists? Like, and if they want to choose school, like I will let them. If they choose that, if they make the choice, like actually, yeah, I do want to go try, see what it's like, then they'll choose that. So it hasn't been hard for the most part because that thankfully have very supportive family. But I still wanted to talk about what happened last week on the call.
Yeah.
And about like, so basically it seems like I still have this belief that children need to be helped. Yeah, right? Like, like when you were saying you put the potty for your children, is it's like, you don't need to keep forcing them. If you just help them, or if they're going through something hard, instead of telling them don't cry, if you just help them, if, and then so, because I brought it back to something, of course, it's like some kind of conditioning that is in this body mind, that even though I could see that this body mind is not who I am, there's still some kind of conditioning that children need to be helped.
Everybody needs to be helped. Everybody needs to be helped. Everybody. It's not only children. It's also the old lady that is sitting in the bus, and you see she's sitting and fighting with her mobile phone. She can't read what it says. And you ask her, "Excuse me, do you need help? Can I help you?" If it's somebody that everybody needs help. It's not only children, and it's just about that complete compassion and kindness, to have like, yeah, just normal kindness and with other people and with other beings and with other, and then we help and support when we can, whenever there's a need. So it's not only children, it's everybody. It's like you have the group of the other mothers, because you need help, and they are there to help you. We need one another. We need help with things.
Yeah, so I guess my belief is then it's so unfair that children aren't helped.
Yeah.
Because, when we were talking about so basically when I'm looking at Feder 4 or 5 right now, and when I see my reaction to my child, so sometimes when my child has this need, right? If I'm talking to somebody, she'll say, "Mama, mama, 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 mama," and I'm like, she sees that I'm talking to somebody else. It's so like, for me to take my attention off what I'm doing and then try to put it on her, there's something really triggering in that I get frustrated. I feel frustrated, and then I'm yelling at her, or I'm saying something to her like, "Can't you see that I'm talking?" Like, I don't ever yell at them, but like I just, like, I'm that nasty teacher. I become that nasty teacher that I was so opposed to. So that's what we were talking about on the call last week, because I guess what we were saying last week is that I have this belief that, like, if I'm nasty to her, then she's gonna end up fucked up or something. And so in reality, I know that she just needs help. Like, she doesn't understand. Like, she just needs help right now. And she cannot comprehend that, like, I need to be patient. And actually, I notice she's talking to someone. So let me just hold my thought in. I'll just wait till she's done. I'll hold my thought in. And then when she's paused, I'll say something. Like, obviously she's 5. She can't do that. So, but for some reason, there's something in me that gets triggered. And this is like the 4 or 5 stuff. Like, what my desire is for, like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know, to not have to shift my attention so rapidly or something, or I'm not exactly sure. But we also have talked about my trauma around my father shaming me for, like, there's something that happened where I was putting my fingers in my mouth, and he said, "Don't put your fingers in your mouth." And I kept doing it unknowingly, as the little child I was. And he yelled at me, and he shamed me for, "What's wrong with you? Stop putting your fingers in your mouth," right? So I had the thought, when I was doing the work on Feder 4 or 5 from Christiane's book, which is basically like, write the sentence. So sometimes I can't do the sentence because it's not in the moment. So she said, maybe try a different sentence of, like, something that happened when you were a child. And it's like, "Oh, my father didn't help me." If he would have just said, like, "Come on, let's go wash your hands," like you said once, right? Like, just make it easier for them. Put the thing next to the toilet. Have them go wash their hands. Do it with them. Like, my father didn't help me. So maybe there's something, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe there's this.
Absolutely, but the way, I don't know if this is helpful at all. First, I want to take the incident with you and your dad, that a child put their finger in the mouth, and that's how it is. So us telling them not to put the finger in the mouth is like, stop breathing. It's not going to happen. What you do is you wash the fingers, so when they put the fingers in the mouth, at least they're clean. It's the same help that you need to do with your not don't need to do, but it's what I would say in that situation, that your daughter needs help with knowing when to speak and when not to speak. And again, and you might utterly hate me for this, but children don't do what we say, they do what we do. So you need to look at how often you interrupt, how often somebody's talking and you interrupt, and you actually do exactly what she's doing, but for some reason you think it's okay because you're the adult and she's sitting and playing with her dolls. And you could, if she's sitting playing with cars or dolls or whatever in her own game, and you want to say something to her, instead of just yelling at her, we're eating now, or come here, or whatever, then you do the respectful thing, which is go to the door, knock on the door, and when she's ready and she has the focus, she's done with what she's doing, then she looks at you and you go, we're eating now. Then you talk. So you need to be how you want her to be. She's just doing exactly what you're doing. So it's again, you need to look at you and see how are you respecting her space when she's sitting and talking with her cars or her dolls or whatever she's talking to, that you don't interrupt that, because that is not what we do in this family. We respect one another's space and we respect whatever you're doing. Just like now I'm sitting on a call, so therefore you don't come and interrupt. Just like when you're sitting and playing, I don't come and interrupt you. It's that mutual respect for the other person. That's about boundaries. And that's how we teach our children boundaries, by respecting theirs.
It's true. Yeah. Yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because now I do notice that sometimes I'm like in the other room and I'm like, Liana!
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because I don't even know what she's doing over there.
Yeah, exactly what she's doing. She has no idea what you're doing, and she hasn't been taught to check in first before she just, yell through the house. So in order to teach her that, you need to do it.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah, I could see. And also, because I have seen that, like, the more I look at that trigger that happens right before it happens, because what they call staying in the gap, it's like slows down more. So now instead of being like, what? Or like, just kind of getting nasty with her, like the last time that it happened, I said to her, do you notice that I'm talking to this person? Like I could just say it very calmly, like, and that's how it was right after I had the glimpse, like very matter of fact, like, oh, this is what's happening. Here's what's happening now and now and now. But, then it kind of like, it just feels like it's, of course, like there's that honeymoon period that it's so clear. And then slowly kind of, I'm all of a sudden triggered by something, and it is still like a quick kind of emotion that I never stay in it anymore. But it is, yes, like that when we talk about Federer 4 or 5, it's like there is that noticing where I want something to be different. Like I need to control this.
Yes. And in that there's a lot of looking at your own beliefs about roles and about all of that, because you might feel or one might feel that, but why should I stop what I'm doing and go to the child and be respectful like that? Okay, you need to look at your childhood. You need to look at how you were treated, how were you taught about boundaries, because this is what this is about. And that's why I put so much emphasis on the trauma work in the awakening curriculum, because we can sit in the gap forever and ever and ever, and it will keep coming up over and over and over until we have met what needs to be met, and then we can let go. Then we can be in the space where there's nothing that is activated anymore. There's no fight anymore, because there's nothing to fight about. There's no one to fight from or with. So it hasn't got any potency or reality about it anymore. And it's why I find it very important to talk about the trauma, and to do look into fear, anger, guilt, and shame, and to really spend time with that until it's not potent anymore. And then it's exactly what you experienced. Keep asking into that contraction that feels as if there is someone somewhere, keep asking into it. Okay, but it's here. I can feel the contraction. Just like, Alan Watts, he says that the eye is just a contraction in the body, that it's that, but I feel the contraction. Okay, keep looking into it, keep looking into it, keep looking at it, because it's in that delusion that we believe that there is something factual when there's not.
That we think that there is something factual.
Yeah.
That there's not, including, not that there's a me in this body, but that there's a situation here.
Which is a problem.
Yes. Right.
That's no problem. It's just your daughter that has been taught that whenever she wants attention, she demands attention right now because you do. It's just what she's been taught. It's what you do in your family. You turn the light on, before you open the door to the bathroom or after you have opened. I mean, you take your shoes on before your underwear. I mean, it's just those things we have been taught, and that's why she does it. There's nothing deeper in it. If she was in another family, she would do something different because she's been taught something different. So
right. It's not about her.
It's not any deeper than that. There's nothing more in it than that. So when you get aggravated by a child standing and yelling at you, there's something else to look into.
So do I just look into like what I'm believing in that moment, or do I just keep asking what? Because I thought that's what I was. I thought that I was being reactive because she needs my help, and there's something that's happening that when I needed help when I was a little girl, right? Like, so how do I look at that? Like,
but you hit it right now. You're creating something out of nothing. You're
okay.
with seventh feather right now. You're creating something out of nothing. You're creating another story that you then can believe in and justify your action with. What I would like for you to do is just
fix it. Or like,
yeah, fix it.
I want to fix it.
If then, exactly. We're back to the if then. I think that what would be interesting is next time that you want her to do something, that dinner is served or pick up her things or something like that, then in that moment, that is the lab. That is where instead of you just yelling her name and wanting her attention right away, you look into, okay, now I need to stop what I'm doing and be present in the moment and go and get her attention when she's ready to do something else, and ask her to pick up her jacket. It's not just yelling at her that she needs to pick up her jacket. It's that being present in the moment, and then copy paste. She will copy paste what you're doing. It's there. It's interesting. It's not when she's yelling at you. She's just copy paste. It's way past the problem.
Yeah, that's the boundaries, giving her the same respect that I would want.
That you expect her to give you while you're standing talking with someone else. You expect her to give a respect, which she's not, because you are not giving it to her, so she's never been taught that you don't interrupt.
Yeah.
And then it's also just something, I remember my kids have never done the lying in the supermarket screaming in the aisle thing.
Mine neither.
We have seen children do it, and when we have seen it do it, I have addressed it with the children, that that if you want something, you just talk to me, right? You just tell me what you want. You don't need to do that. You never see me do that. So if I want you to do something, I just ask you, and if you want me to do something, you just ask me, and that's it. So you just have an adult conversation with the child, and of course they know it. And they feel for the little fella that is lying there screaming in the aisle, like you do as an adult,
Yes, it's so true. Yeah, that's also never been an issue, because it's like, the child gets all. There you are.
I really, really hope that the recording is saved. Oh my God, and that's not gonna go like last time with Vince. Remember? Where it jumped off.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. So the whole it's the same thing as like, when they're having that tantrum and it's like they really, really want that thing. Just like with the baby, where you tell the baby you're gonna pick him up because you notice you know that there's a being there that needs to be acknowledged. Like same thing, like, yeah, you really want that candy. It's so hard. I hear you. And no, like it can still be a no, but you don't need to meet them. Now if you're meeting them and now you're setting that example. Now you're meeting them with, I told you no, and you don't you dare to act like that. And now the parent's thinking about what everybody else is thinking about their child. And it's like this whole thing that's like, doesn't need to be that way, but you set the example and you be that, you just set the example of like, I hear you, it's hard, and we're gonna go now then, or let's plan, forget it next time, or try to, just try to help them, and set that example. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that it's recorded too, but yeah.
Otherwise we have to do another day. I would love that.
Yeah. So what else? So then, yeah, with the whole, setting that example. I mean, isn't that kind of like, well, yes. That is, I get the sense that like that's almost like fixing the problem or making sure that that doesn't happen again with my daughter. Like if I respect her, she'll respect me, or she'll learn as I do it to her, she'll learn it more. But then won't it just manifest somewhere else? Like that trigger? Well, is that also just, am I just making that up? Because that seems like it's also addressing the outside. It's not addressing the outside, it's addressing what I do.
Yes.
Okay.
I would suggest that next time you need her attention, that you really are curious in the moment, and then you feel, what is this really about? What is happening in me right now? And then take it from there, and then do what Todd talked about. Look into who is it that has the contraction about that you need to stop what you're doing right now because she needs you or you want her to do something. Really, really look into it. And that is where the question is. It's not in the other instant. That's just where you feel that you get triggered and you feel disrespected and la la la. Another story, which is super interesting to look into, but it has nothing to do with the real issue, if you know what I mean.
Okay. I was listening to Perfect Brilliant Stillness. This author, his last name is Carse, Carse. I don't remember his first name. It's just such a beautiful description of his, experience and what this is. But so when I think about the later kind of fetters, and how I wrote to you in the message, how it seems that I had that kind of glimpse that I could see through self, but still there's some, sort of contraction in the body still that is trying to control this. And there are still ideas about, even though that there's no self, there still feels like there's a perspective here. Looking through these eyes, kind of.
Stay curious to that. Stay curious to that. Who is looking and where is the looking happening? And is there anything in this moment, in what is happening, that is problematic, or is it a thought about something being problematic? Is there anything in this moment that can be any different, or is it just a thought about something that could be different? And then look into also how much is still an if then thought, that promise of something in the future, that if you do this, then this will happen. We talked about before we started to record. Obviously, I don't know if this has been recorded at all, or if this is just you and I sitting and talking with the super coach, and I would love to do that again. But anyways, we talked about that that part of motherhood, which is also in my mind connected with the awakening, that we have that constant guilt and shame of doing things wrong. How much of the identification as a mother and as a good role model and all of that is actually attached to a separate self. And with the awakening, that falls away, and there's just not any meat on it anymore. That it's also what we talked about at the last time we met, where it was that where I said, well, no matter what you do, you're gonna fuck your kids up. It's how it is, because it's not about you. It's not about you doing something right or you doing something wrong. They will perceive the world and what is going on their own accord, and they will have experiences that needs therapy, that they need to talk to somebody about, and they will hold things against you, no matter if you did A or B. It doesn't matter. It's not about what you do or what you don't do. And really, really letting go of that delusion that we have an agency in what we do is super interesting to look into.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about, right, like motherhood and womanhood that's like, I mean, it's weird because there is no time, but there's something about body, mind, mother that's instinctually, there are these drives that happen to protect the child, right? And those can all happen very naturally, but somehow your mind takes hold of it all and says, well, I can do it, or at least I can help those along. Like, I'm going to control this. I'm going to take care of my baby. I'm going to protect my baby. There's something that's instinctual in the mother that, of course, is going to protect the baby. But the mind takes over and just says, no, don't worry, instinct. I got this. I'm going to take over from here and from here until forever. Right? And it's like, no, but I was going to say that just fucks it all up more. But like you said, like no matter what, it's all just consciousness flowing through this. Like it's all just happening as it's supposed to. Perfectly. As awful as it might seem, it's all perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like mothers will hear that and say, but how can you say that a baby dying is perfect, or like children being abused is perfect? But it's like you can't figure out how that's perfect with your thoughts and your mind.
No, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. We need to stay humble. We really need to stay humble. I mean, you have had incidents with your dad that was, far from anything that people will go, oh yeah, me too. I want that too. People, you wouldn't. The experiences you have had in your childhood has been far from ideal, and yet here you sit. And yet here you have, children that are unschooled, and yet here we have this conversation, and yet here you are, and, awakened. So we don't know what is going to lead to freedom. We have no idea. And we need to really know that the frontal lobe have no bloody idea. Some people get it with traumas, other people don't. I mean, some people get it without traumas, other people don't. It's like meditation. Some people become awakened when they meditate. Some people become awakened when they don't. We need to really, really stay humble and know that the frontal lobe knows nothing. It thinks it knows everything, but it really, really doesn't. So I'm not condoning violence or trafficking or abuse or anything like that. I'm not condoning. I'm just saying that if that is anyone's experience, that they have experienced that in their life, then there's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with their experience, and there's nothing wrong with how it feels to be them right now. There's nothing wrong with any of it. And whatever is there and is a conduit to awakening. It is an entrance into freedom. And the freedom is there all along. It's not something that we will get to at some point. It's there all along. It's just about noticing how much is thought right now that I'm identifying with, and how much is actually reality right now. How much in this moment right now is thought that thinks that things should be better or should be any different, and how much can I in this moment right now not have any opinion about, but just notice what is alive right now, what is present right now. And that is where the awakening is. That is where there's no identifying with it. It's just what is, and there's nothing missing, nothing needs to happen. It just is. And it also puts you in that position that what other people, I was thinking about that the other day, that, I want to make a video about that what anybody says about anything, they're completely right. They're completely right. I mean, anybody in the comment section that goes like, Jahaida is so, irresponsible, and you need to school your children, and you need to do, they're completely right. They're completely right, because they're speaking from their starting point, from their experience. They cannot speak about your starting point or your experience. Only you can do that. So they're completely right. They should probably not unschool. They should probably stick with their beliefs and do that. Who am I to know that is not leading to their freedom?
Yeah, but when you say they're completely right,
of course they are. That your beliefs is built on your backpack that you have built in your life to get to this point where you achieved your freedom. Their perception is built on their backpack.
Right, because if that's their bubble of reality, like you say.
Yeah.
Everything that they have sensed throughout their own kind of
exactly what exactly
that have gone through their body mind.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever they perceive as reality and what is real, it's clearly real to them. So they're absolutely right. There's no universal truth. There's no one true thing. There's many truths as there are people.
Okay, so let's use the example of Vince and the woman that he was judging for she didn't believe in global warming, right? And then he was in his bubble of reality insistent that she's wrong, right? Because I mean, isn't there in that sense, isn't there some kind of truth about global warming, whether it exists or not, or no? Like,
there's science,
right? Doesn't science?
But
okay,
but Vince is completely right, because Vince's opinion is based on Vince. The woman's opinion, she's completely right, because in her bubble of reality, it's based on her opinion. So they're just two opinions sitting and airing one another.
But isn't there something in science that proves that there is and there isn't global warming? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too. Because there's things that have evidence for that there is. There's things that there's evidence that there's not.
But that has nothing to do with her opinion and her reality. There are people out there that believe that the earth is flat, right? They're completely right. In their world, they're completely right, because that is how they view the world. Their view of the world is based on everything they have amassed, and they're completely right. Who are we to know how they will attain their freedom? They might need to go through a period of flat earthing to get their awakening. I mean, who are we to know what they need in this life? They might go through a period where you know, some people need religion, some people don't. Some people need, you know, to dance naked in a rose bush. Some people don't. I mean, it's different things we need, and which means that whatever you do is exactly like it's supposed to be. Like Vinci talks about also with he wanted to be a different dad than his dad. That created a reality for him that made him a certain type of dad. And in that moment when he was dad the way that he was, that was reality. That was the truth. It's not like anybody ever treats anybody bad with that purpose. They always have a benefit with what they're doing and can always justify. Even narcissists, they can justify what they're doing, you know. Pedophiles can justify what they're doing. A serial killer can justify what they're doing, because in their reality, they're completely right.
Right.
It's again that completely removing the arrogance that we have, where we believe that we are right. I mean, things that we used to believe that we could make gold out of, you know, mixing different metals, and then that's alchemy. We used to believe that. We used to believe that doctors didn't need to wash their hands before surgery because they were better people than the rest of us, which means that they, you know, didn't need to do that. We used to believe that. It used to be a truth. So it's just that part about staying humble. And if you feel that you really, really need to fight for other people to realize about something about Trump or abortion or global warming or anything like that, look into that. Look into what is it that is so important that you need to fight for it. I'm not talking about being complacent, and I'm not talking about apathy and resignation. That too is a belief. Of course you need to help, like we talked about earlier. Of course you need to help. But judging somebody for their opinion about something is not helpful. And just creating the space for somebody to have an opinion and not wishing them to do any different.
Hello. Leo.
Hello.
Can you just wait 10 more minutes? Or you can try, but just put the flame on low, okay?
Okay, low with low.
Low, not too high.
I feel like 4 or 3.
Yeah. Might take a little longer. He's gonna cook an egg by himself. 7 years old.
Yeah.
Do you know that in different cultures, my husband was saying in different cultures that 7-year-olds take care of the babies.
Yeah.
Like they leave the parents go to work and the 7-year-olds take. And that's the thing. That's what you're saying too. Like it's all relative. Like you know, one person think, oh, they can't do that by themselves. He can't use the stove by himself. He's only 7. He'll get hurt. You know, it's like, actually, no, not everybody would agree with that. So that's not an absolute truth. So like what, like you're right.
Yeah, exactly. My kids, they started using knives, you know, to cut steaks and stuff like that when they were 3. It's completely normal in many cultures to learn how to use a knife as a tool when they're young.
Yeah, because it's like this fear that like, oh my God, what happens if they cut themselves? As opposed to like being so present in the moment that you're able to notice if they're about to cut themselves.
Yeah, and be there. Be there. Help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course you don't give, you know, a 3-year-old an axe and say knock yourself out. Have fun.
Right.
You're there and you're supporting and you're helping and being helpful. I would love to have another talk with you. First of all, I'm really excited to see if everything got recorded. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
I mean,
If it did, I hope it's going to be really, I'm quite sure it's going to be very, very useful for a lot of mothers out there. If it didn't, then we have to have the conversation again.
Okay.
I would love that. And I would also love to, have another conversation with you, like when you're further along, if there's other things that are coming up that, I would love to hear how it's going next time that you, are yelling, at your kids that you want them to do something and stop in the moment and get their attention in the way that you want them to get your attention.
Yeah.
I would love to hear how that is working out.
Okay. Yeah.
This was great. I really enjoyed it. Okay, I'm going to stop recording and then I would like to say goodbye to you. So thank you for this.
Mm-hmm.